While I was at work, my sister sold my golden retriever to a wealthy family. Now he's finally in a home where he's truly appreciated, she said, sipping her wine. I smiled. She had no idea what was coming. Now Max is finally in a home where he's truly appreciated. Rachel said it so casually, swirling the wine in her glass like it was just another mindless remark. At first, I didn't react. I thought I had misheard her. My fork hovered in the air, my pulse quickened. The sound of clinking cutlery and murmured conversations blurred into white noise. What? My voice came out softer than I intended, but inside, everything was screaming. Rachel smirked, tilting her head like she was enjoying this moment. Oh, don't look so shocked, Jess. You know how much of a hassle he was. I found someone who actually values him. I couldn't breathe. Max, my dog, my best friend, had been missing since yesterday. I had searched the entire neighborhood, called every shelter, plastered missing posters, hoping, praying that he had somehow slipped out and gotten lost. The thought that someone had taken him had never crossed my mind. And now, Rachel was sitting across from me, sipping her wine like a villain in a bad movie, telling me she had given him away. I swallowed, gripping my fork so tightly my fingers ached. What did you do? I asked, my voice steady, but I could already feel my control slipping. Rachel leaned back in her chair, exhaling like I was overreacting. Relax. He's with a wonderful family now. They adore him. Unlike you, they don't keep an aggressive dog in a tiny apartment. He wasn't aggressive. My voice cracked as I shot to my feet. Rachel rolled her eyes. Oh, come on. He hated me. He growled every time I walked in. Honestly, Jess, it was creepy. I felt like I was falling. Like the ground beneath me had disappeared and I was free falling into something dark and suffocating. I turned to my parents, desperate for support, for outrage, for anything. Mom cleared her throat and focused on slicing her steak. Dad stared at his plate, chewing slower than normal, deliberately avoiding eye contact. They knew. They had known, and they did nothing. The betrayal hit me like a punch to the gut. Where is he? I demanded. Rachel gave me a look of mock sympathy. Jess, don't be dramatic. Where is he? My voice was shaking now, my hands clenched into fists. Rachel let out an exaggerated sigh, as if I were exhausting her. Fine, if you must know, he's with the Greenwoods. Lovely family, big yard, adorable kids. He's happy. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. She sold him. Max wasn't just some stray she handed off to a shelter, she sold him to some rich family like a piece of furniture. My phone was already in my hand before I even realized what I was doing. My fingers trembled as I opened the GPS tracking app linked to Max's collar. The screen loaded. A single blinking appeared on the map. He was close. Too close. My stomach dropped as I stared at the location. I lifted my eyes, my breath coming fast and shallow. The signal was coming from this house. I looked at Rachel. Her smirk faltered just slightly. You're lying. My voice was barely above a whisper. She arched an eyebrow, but I saw it, the flicker of something behind her eyes. Annoyance. Maybe even panic. Oh, honey, she said, voice dripping with condescension. What are you gonna do? Call the cops? I didn't answer. I turned and walked out. Because I wasn't just going to find Max. I was going to get him back. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. The blinking on my phone screen pulsed steadily, confirming what I already knew. Max had been here. In this house. I should have turned back, stormed inside, demanded answers. But something stopped me. A deeper instinct, a whisper in the back of my mind. This isn't just about Rachel. Max wasn't the kind of dog to wander off. He was trained, he never strayed too far from me, and he wouldn't have vanished unless someone made him. I exhaled sharply, my breath shaky as I stared at my parents' house in the rearview mirror. No. I needed to think. I needed to be smart. Rachel had always hated Max. I could still hear her voice from years ago, dripping with irritation. That thing growls at me every time I walk into a room, Jess. It's like he knows I don't like him. That was the thing about Rachel, she needed control. Over everything. Over everyone. And Max? He saw right through her. She tried to bribe him with treats once. He wouldn't take them. She tried to pet him. He pulled away. And the final straw? One night, 2 years ago, when Rachel got too close to me, speaking in that fake sweet voice she used whenever she was about to manipulate someone. Max stepped between us and let out a low, warning growl. Rachel never forgave him for that. Animals sense things about people, Mark, Max's trainer, had once told me. Dogs don't just react. They understand. Rachel had spent years complaining about him, calling him aggressive, dangerous, unpredictable. But Max was none of those things. He was protective, sure, but only when there was a reason. So why now? Why steal him? Why sell him? I already knew the answer before I even let myself think it. Money. I pulled into my driveway and parked, my hands still shaking. Rachel wasn't smart enough to pull off something like this on her own. No, she had help. And I had a good idea where it came from. I grabbed my laptop, my heart pounding as I typed the name into the search bar. Hope Shelter. A few months ago, Rachel started volunteering at an animal shelter. I never paid much attention to it at the time. She was always hopping from one good deed to the next, making sure everyone saw what a charitable, generous person she was. But now, something about it didn't sit right. The website was polished, professional. Pictures of smiling families adopting happy, healthy dogs. A mission statement about rescuing and rehoming abandoned animals. But the deeper I dug, the worse it got. The first red flag? The adoption fees. They were insanely high, way above standard. Some dogs were listed for thousands of dollars, their descriptions vague, their pictures unsettling, like they had been taken in a rush. Then I found the complaints. Hidden between 5-star reviews were 1-star horror stories. I adopted a golden retriever from Hope Shelter last year. 2 weeks later, I found out he wasn't the same dog I had originally met. He looked similar, but his temperament was completely different. We were promised a purebred Labrador but received a mix instead. The shelter refused to refund us and stopped responding to calls. My dog disappeared, and I later found a nearly identical one listed for adoption on their site. When I confronted them, they denied everything. My stomach twisted. This wasn't just Rachel being vindictive. This was a scam. They weren't just selling animals. They were stealing dogs, replacing them with lookalikes, and selling the purebreds to the highest bidder. And Rachel? She was in on it. I took a shaky breath and dialed the only person who could help me legally, Emily. She picked up on the third ring. Jess? What's wrong? I didn't bother with small talk. I think my sister stole Max and sold him through a fraudulent shelter. There was silence on the other end. Then, okay, tell me everything. I did. I told her about Rachel's hatred for Max, the missing dog, the GPS tracker, and Hope Shelter's shady adoption history. I expected her to tell me I was overreacting, that it was just a misunderstanding. Instead, she exhaled sharply. I've heard of them. My blood ran cold. What? They've been on my radar for a while, Jess. Nothing solid, but people have suspected them of running an illegal operation, stealing high-value dogs and swapping them out with shelter mutts. But no one's been able to prove it. Then let's prove it, I said, gripping the phone. She hesitated. Jess, if this is bigger than Rachel, we need more than just suspicions. We need evidence. I clenched my jaw. Then let's get some. After hanging up, I knew one thing: I couldn't do this alone. I needed someone who knew dogs. Someone who knew Max. So I called Mark, his trainer. Jess, he answered groggily. It was late. I didn't care. Mark, I need your help. Someone stole Max. Silence. Then, a sharp intake of breath. What do you need me to do? I told him everything, and by the time I was done, his voice was dead serious. Meet me tomorrow morning. We'll figure this out. I hung up and stared at my screen. Max was out there. Rachel was involved in something bigger, darker than just sibling rivalry. And I was going to bring it all crashing down. No matter what it took. The Greenwood estate was bigger than I expected. A tall, black iron gate blocked the entrance, lined with neatly trimmed hedges. Beyond it, A sprawling two-story house loomed in the distance, its massive windows glowing with warm light. It looked like the kind of place you'd see in a magazine, perfect, pristine, untouchable. But somewhere inside, Max was here. I gripped my phone, my heartbeat drumming in my ears as I checked the GPS tracker one last time. The blinking dot was still there. "This is it," I murmured, turning to Mark, who sat in the passenger seat. His expression was grim, his jaw tight. "I still can't believe she did this," he muttered. "Selling your own sister's dog? Who the hell does that?" "Rachel," I spat. Mark exhaled sharply, shaking his head. "All right. You ready?" I nodded, then glanced behind us where Emily's car was parked. She had insisted on coming in case things turned legal, which they likely would. And right next to her, the unmarked police vehicle. Officer Grant, a local cop Emily knew, was inside. We didn't have an arrest warrant, not yet, but we had enough. Enough complaints against Hope Shelter, enough reports of missing dogs, and now, evidence that at least one stolen pet was sitting behind that gate. "If we don't get in, we're going to need a court order," Emily had warned earlier. "But if they let us inside willingly, we might not need one." That was the plan. Get inside, confirm Max is there, and force their hand. I took a deep breath and stepped out of the car. Face to face with the Greenwoods. A man in his mid-40s opened the front door before I even had a chance to knock. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in a crisp button-down like he had just stepped out of a business meeting. His eyes flicked between me and Mark, then landed on Emily and Officer Grant standing by the cars. His frown deepened. "Can I help you?" I lifted my chin. "My name is Jessica Carter. My dog, Max, was stolen from me and sold to your family under false pretenses." A woman appeared behind him, blonde, elegant, rich. Her brows knitted in concern as she placed a hand on his arm. "I'm sorry, but there must be some mistake," she said smoothly. "We adopted our dog legally through Hope Shelter. That dog is mine." My voice was ice. The man stiffened. "That's a serious accusation." "So is fraud and theft," Emily cut in, stepping forward. "We have reason to believe that Hope Shelter has been involved in multiple cases of stolen pets. Jessica has proof that her dog is here." The man's frown deepened, but the woman, she looked uneasy. She hesitated for a fraction of a second. That was all I needed. "Let me see him," I demanded. The woman bit her lip, glancing toward the hallway. Then I heard it. A faint scratching sound. My heart lurched. I knew that sound. I had heard it 100 times before, Max scratching at a door when he wanted to be let out. "Mom?" A small voice came from behind them. A boy, maybe 6 years old, rolled his wheelchair into view, his hands gripping the wheels as he maneuvered closer. He was pale, his brown hair slightly messy, and his face lit up with pure joy when he saw me. "Not me. Max." He came barreling through the hallway, his black and tan fur a blur as he ran straight toward me. For a split second, I couldn't breathe. Then he was on me, his paws against my chest, his body trembling, his tail wagging so hard I thought he might fall over. His tongue covered my face, desperate, frantic, like he was afraid I wasn't real. "Max," I choked out, wrapping my arms around him. I felt his whole body shaking against mine. "That's impossible," the man muttered behind me. "No, Dad," the boy whispered. "She's telling the truth." Max knew her. The silence was suffocating. I kept my arms around Max, feeling his heartbeat against mine. Then I heard it. A soft sniffle. I turned my head and saw the boy, his face crumpled, his hands gripping the wheels of his chair so tight his knuckles turned white. "You're taking him away?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. My stomach twisted into knots. I had fought so hard to find Max. Had spent nights searching, crying, raging at the injustice of it all. But now, standing here, I realized something else. Max had saved me 1,000 times over. And now he had saved someone else. I glanced at Emily, then at Officer Grant. They were both waiting for my decision. I swallowed hard and looked at the boy. "What's your name?" I asked gently. "Jake," he whispered. "Jake. Max is my best friend." My throat tightened, but I force myself to keep talking. But I can see he's yours too. Jake nodded, his lower lip trembling. I took a slow breath. I won't take him from you, I said finally. But I will make this right. Jake blinked up at me. How? I looked at his parents. You were scammed, I told them. You paid for a stolen dog. But I don't blame you for that. You didn't know. I exhaled. I can help you find another companion for Jake, one who needs a home. I felt Max shift in my arms. Then, slowly, he stepped back. For the first time, he turned, his big brown eyes moving from me to Jake. And then, just as quickly, he went to him. He placed his head gently on the boy's lap, his tail wagging, his body lowering into a calm, steady sit. Jake wiped his eyes and smiled. My vision blurred. I nodded once, swallowing the lump in my throat. We're gonna fix this, I said, my voice thick. I promise. Max was safe. But this wasn't over. As I watched him nuzzle against Jake, I felt a strange mix of emotions, relief, sadness, anger. Max was mine, but he had also become something more. He had saved this boy in ways I couldn't ignore. But Rachel? She wasn't getting away with this. I turned to Emily. We're shutting Hope Shelter down. Her expression was unreadable for a moment, but then she nodded. Then let's do it. The next few days were a whirlwind of calls, legal research, and uncovering everything we could about Hope Shelter. Emily had her contacts in law enforcement dig into the organization's financials, and what she found was worse than we thought. Dozens of high-value dogs listed as rescued, but their previous owners had reported them missing. Massive adoption fees charged for rehomed purebreds, while their lookalikes were dumped into overpopulated shelters. Fake veterinary records to cover up the swaps. And at the center of it all? Rachel. She had been directly involved in several of these fraudulent adoptions. Her name was all over financial records, email correspondence, and even social media posts from happy new owners thanking her for finding them the perfect dog. I felt sick. Mark had also been working behind the scenes, talking to other trainers and pet owners who had lost dogs under suspicious circumstances. The stories all lined up. Hope Shelter was running a full-scale operation, profiting off stolen dogs and getting away with it. Not anymore. Rachel didn't know what was coming. When I showed up at her apartment, she answered the door in her usual effortless way, casually smug, like she was above everyone else. Jess, she sighed, crossing her arms. Look, I know you're upset about the whole dog thing, but... I held up my phone and pressed play. A recorded phone call between a victim and Hope Shelter's receptionist, where they admitted to swapping dogs. Rachel paled. What is that? Proof, I said coldly. She tried to laugh. Oh, come on, Jess. You're not actually serious. I pulled out a thick folder of legal documents. Emily is filing a class action lawsuit against Hope Shelter. Turns out you've been scamming people for years. Rachel's smirk twitched. You wouldn't, she whispered. I already did. Her face contorted into something ugly. You think you're some kind of hero? You don't understand how the world works, Jess. These people, you think they actually cared about their dogs? Half of them probably neglected them. We gave them better homes. I took a slow breath, holding back my rage. You stole from families. You lied. And now? You're going to face the consequences. For the first time, I saw something I had never seen in Rachel before. Fear. By the end of the week, Hope Shelter was under investigation. Authorities raided the facility. Many of the dogs inside were unchipped lookalikes, swaps for stolen pets that had been sold to wealthy buyers. Several victims came forward, including families who had unknowingly adopted stolen dogs. Rachel was officially charged with fraud and conspiracy. Her volunteer status wasn't enough to protect her. And the best part? The court ordered her to pay restitution to every victim. Rachel finally had to face the consequences of her actions. She lost her apartment. Her boyfriend dumped her the moment he realized she was headed for trial. And Mom and Dad? Silent. For the first time, they couldn't protect her. They couldn't excuse this. Rachel had finally destroyed herself. With Hope Shelter shut down, I had one last promise to keep. A week after the raid, I drove back to the Greenwoods house with Mark. This time, I wasn't here to take Max back. I was here to give them something else. As I walked up the driveway, Jake rolled his wheelchair toward me, his eyes filled with uncertainty. "You really found one?" he asked quietly. I smiled and stepped aside. Behind me, a golden retriever with warm brown eyes trotted forward, wagging his tail. "Jake, meet Charlie." Jake's face lit up. The retriever padded over and immediately pressed his head into Jake's lap, letting out a soft sigh. Jake looked up at me, his eyes wide. "He's perfect. He needs a home," I said softly. "And I think he already loves you." Jake beamed. I turned, and for the first time, I let go of Max. I wasn't losing him. I was giving him what he had given me, a second chance. The morning air was crisp, the sky painted in soft hues of pink and gold. As I stepped outside, Max trotted beside me, his tail wagging, his body lighter, as if he knew it was finally over. It had been a month since Hope Shelter was shut down. A month since Rachel's world crumbled. I hadn't spoken to her since that last confrontation, but I had heard enough. She was drowning in legal battles, buried under fines and lawsuits. Community service, a destroyed reputation, financial ruin, all of it had come crashing down on her. And Mom and Dad? They never called. They had spent years defending Rachel, covering for her, making excuses. But now, with no way to fix her mess, they had simply let her fall. And honestly, I didn't care. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was drowning in their expectations, their judgments, their twisted idea of family. For the first time, I was free. I should have known she wouldn't go down quietly. The message came late one night, a single text from an unknown number. "Rachel, I hope you're happy. You ruined my life." I stared at the screen, waiting for the usual wave of guilt. But there was nothing. No anger, no sadness, no regret, just emptiness. I didn't reply. I just blocked the number and moved on. Update: Charlie had settled in with Jake perfectly. I still visited sometimes, just to check in, to see the way Jake's face lit up every time Charlie ran to him, tail wagging, body vibrating with excitement. It was the kind of bond you couldn't fake. Max had been meant for me. Charlie had been meant for Jake. And now we had both found our peace. As I walked down the path with Max beside me, I let out a slow breath, feeling the weight of the past finally lift. I wasn't just the girl who had lost everything anymore. I was the girl who had fought back. And won. Final update: I knew posting about this would bring strong opinions, but I wasn't prepared for this. The comments flooded in overnight, thousands of them. Some people supported me, but plenty didn't. I scrolled through, my heart pounding. "So you ruined your sister's life over a dog? Seriously? At the end of the day, she's your family. I can't believe you'd turn against her like that. Hope your dog keeps you warm when you're old and alone." There were so many ways to handle this that didn't involve making things worse. You could have talked it out. But instead, you chose to go to extremes. That's on you. "So you love a dog more than your own sister?" That one stung. I clenched my jaw, staring at the screen, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Then I started typing. My response. Do I love a dog more than my sister? Yes, because Max is my family. He was there when I cried myself to sleep as a kid, when I felt completely alone, when I thought no one in the world understood me. He was always there, always loyal, always loving. When I had no one, I had him. My sister? She was never truly there for me. Not when she lied to our parents to make me look bad. Not when she made sure I was always the one blamed for everything. Not when she took something she knew meant everything to me and sold him like he was nothing. She spent years making my life miserable. And now? She was held accountable for what she had done. I took a breath, my fingers shaking, but I kept going. You could have solved this peacefully. Could I? Really? How exactly was I supposed to reason with someone who stole from me? Who looked me in the eye and laughed, acting like I was crazy for caring? If I had just let it go, more dogs would have been stolen. More families would have been lied to. Someone had to stop it. Maybe it's uncomfortable to see how messy it got. But if I had stayed quiet, that shelter would still be running its dishonest operation. So no, I don't regret standing up for what was right. You completely ruined her life. That's not justice, that's revenge. You say I ruined her life? She made her own choices. I just finally stopped letting her get away with them. I stared at the screen, my chest heaving, my pulse pounding in my ears. Then I hit post.